This is simple instructions on how to create a vector image from an image that you already have, for example, a JPEG. And first thing you want to do is create a file in Illustrator. And in this case, we're going to go with a 400 by 400 pixel file, and something that we can use on the web. Next, let's just save our file so we have a copy of it and we can work from it and make changes. So it's going to be an Adobe Illustrator file. Next, we're going to import the image we want to use, but we're going to use the Place option that's under File. So you go to File and choose Place. And we're going to go and find the file we want to add to the image. This time I'm choosing this tractor. And I'm going to place it on the page where I want it. So I'm placing it at the top left. But you can move it around wherever you feel more comfortable. I would not resize it, I would just leave it like it is. Okay, next I'm going to come over and double click on the layers and that particular layer, and we're going to change that to a template. And you notice that when we change it to a template, it locks the image, which is what we really want to happen. It also creates a transparent cover so we can tell the difference between this image and the image we're going to be working on. So you're going to say OK and accept the defaults. Next thing we're going to do is create a layer on top of that, and that's actually the layer that we're going to be working on. Next, we're going to start working with using a paintbrush, and we want to set up a paintbrush tool. And I suggest that you use either 0.5 or 0.25 for the size for your paintbrush, and that's going to be in the stroke. So either one you want to use, but I would not make the stroke too big. Okay, make sure your stroke is black. So you choose black from the option from colors. We're going to make the fill be no fill or none. If you have trouble seeing the image, you can use the zoom options to zoom in a bit to see better. But I like seeing the whole image when I'm working, but that's up to you how close you want to have the zoom while you're working. Okay, we've got the paintbrush set up, so I'm going to select the paintbrush and I'm going to get started. I'm going to move along quickly on some of these steps, but there are just a couple of hints. Just one thing, do not get bogged down in detail. It's going to just keep it loose. Make sure that you've got things working. Make sure you've got things set up so you can work well. You want to deselect the edit selected paths, because you don't want to make changes on that every time. You can hold the shift key to keep a straight line when it's crooked. So you see that's kind of crooked, but I'm going to show you in just a minute how you can just create hold the shift key down when you're working, and it'll actually make a straight line. I like working freehand most of the time. I don't really like this one, so I'm going to go ahead and set it up so I can use a straight line, and I think that'll look a little better. If you make a mistake, that's not the end of the world. You can use the eraser tool to get rid of items that you don't want on here. I'm not actually erasing the original image because that's locked, remember. So once I erase the items on the current layer, you can see that that's all I've erased. Now I'm going to use the shift key to add a straight line. Okay, so that's just a little bit about how to use that. Okay, so I've moved along and got a number of things done, but one of the things you can use also is to use some of the tools such as the ellipse tool to create circles. And in this case, since I have so many circles, I wanted to do that. And you don't have to create a new circle of each one of these. If you take and use the select tool and hold that particular object and the Alt key, you can drag it and create a copy of it. So I'm going to hold the Alt key and drag that ellipse and create a copy of that. And I'm going to do that around this wheel and create copies. And that should save me a lot of time in actually creating, because once you've created the size you like and you like that, you're going to go with that. So that's pretty good. Okay, I've again created an ellipse, and I'm going to take and use the Alt key to drag that over and make sure that I've got the same object on the other wheel. Since it's very close to the same size, I'm just going to use it. If you do need to change the size of anything, you can go up to the transform button with that object selected and make a change. In this case, I'm just going to change the width and height to reduce the size of the circle just a little bit and create the circle the size that I want to have in here, which is going to be 28 pixels. Again, keep it very simple. Don't try to keep a lot of detail in there. I'm just squiggling around here very quickly, trying to create the illusion of like a rough terrain tire. I'm not trying to create anything that looks like it's really those ruts in the tire. I'm now going to hide the original layer and do a little cleanup with the eraser tool and make it look a little neater in a couple of places, and add a little bit more with the pen tool just to smooth it out a little bit and make it look a little neater. And I'm just about finished with what I'm going to do, because I just needed a raw image. I don't need it to be perfect. Next thing I want to do after I get all of that done and fixed up pretty much like I want it, just a raw image of a tractor. I mean, it looks like a tractor. It's not perfect, but that's okay. And I'm going to go up to Object, and then I'm going to group all of the things. I want to use the Select tool to select everything before I do that. So I'm going to go up and get the Select tool and select everything in there. Okay, now we have everything grouped as one object. That means you can move it around, save it, and it's still going to be that one object. Next, I want to make sure that's selected, and I'm going to go to Effect and go to Effects Gallery, and I want to use the zoom options in the Effects Gallery so I can see the whole image. So that might be 50%, it might be 30%, whatever that's going to be for you, so you can see everything in there. And I'm going to use some of the options in the effects to take a look at how that might look differently. You're probably going to find that the chalk and charcoal or the graphic pen look the best when you're working with something like this. But take a look at other things and see if you see something else you like better. And you're gonna might want to make some changes as far as something like the stroke length, or you have some options also in the graphic pen that you might want to try out and see how those things look, because the settings are a little bit different depending on which one of the options in the effects you choose. pick a look you like and say OK. The next thing you want to do is if you want to keep a copy of it, just use the Alt key and drag your layer to create a copy. The next thing you want to do is to export, and let's export this as a PNG file and name it something different each time. If you're going to have multiple images, you can just put like for example dogs 1 2 3 4 5 whatever, and then make sure you can have it named correctly so you can find it easier. So I'm exporting this out and I can actually add it to my website and have an image. So thank you again for watching today. We created a vector image from a JPEG file. We exported it out so we can use it on a website. And this also, you want to make sure you've saved your work so you can, if you need to tweak it later, you can just go back in and do that.